Hi and welcome to the Allplane Podcast, where I talk with the movers and shakers that are redefining the future of commercial aviation. As usual, before today's show, let me remind you once more that all previous episodes of this podcast, as well as many other aviation stories, are available on the Allplane website. That's Allplane.tv, Allplane.tv. Today's guest is Josef Mouris, a former pilot turned electric aviation entrepreneur. During the pandemic, Flybe, the UK-based regional airline that Josef was flying for at the time, ceased all operations. However, this turned out to be the perfect opportunity for Josef to launch Electron, a startup that aims to develop an electric airplane capable of operating as a green and relatively cheap regional air taxi. Electron has already tested in Portugal a small two-seater version of its very sleek-looking aircraft and is currently scaling up its activities in the Netherlands, where the company is based. Josef has also brought on board Travis Ludlow, who currently holds the world record as the youngest person ever to fly solo around the world. Travis will attempt to circumnavigate the globe once more, but this time on a 100% electric Electron 5 aircraft. This should, in principle, take place as soon as the aircraft becomes ready, hopefully sometime before the end of 2024, and provided that the geopolitical situation allows it. So, on today's episode, Josef shares his vision about the future of electric aviation, as well as his plans to manufacture the Electron 5 aircraft and to operate efficient and sustainable electrically powered fleets that will bring a whole new dimension to regional air mobility. But I think it's best if we hear it all directly from him. Hi, Josef. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Miguel.
Where are you joining us from today?
I am at the moment in the Netherlands, in Hull, at my parents' for a month's time, and doing a bit of work here, setting up our base of operations at Teugen Airport, which is half an hour from here.
Where in the Netherlands is that place?
It's, I would say, on the east side, about in the middle of the country. It's not very big, the Netherlands. You can drive from top to bottom in like 2.5 hours.
True. Yeah. I used to live there for a while, actually. Yeah. I don't know that much the eastern and northern part of the country. I should go back eventually and visit. But
it's flat, just like the rest of it.
Yeah, I can imagine. So basically, I asked you to come here on the podcast because you are leading a very interesting project in the field of electric aviation, which is called Electron, very aptly named. It comes in two flavors, I think. It's Electron Aviation and Electron Aerospace. I'm going to ask you about this distinction now, because I think you are planning to get into two different lines of business which are related. One is making the aircraft, and the second one is operating the aircraft, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, so that's right. Originally, we started Electron Aviation Limited in the UK with the eye of being an operator of battery electric aircraft. And we quickly realized that actually there is not that much available, and not even going to be available in the near future. Certainly not the type of aircraft that we were looking for. So out of necessity, Electron Aerospace was born. And you'll remember Brexit being a not so great event in the United Kingdom, which
it has come up a few times in the podcast.
It's come up a few times, yeah. I think a few people might be starting to regret that decision, but let's not talk too much about that. But it is one of the reasons why we chose to actually start Electron Aerospace in Europe, in the EU, and being from the Netherlands, and the Electric Flying Collective in the Netherlands being formed the end of 2021, gaining members rapidly. I think we're quite ahead there compared to other places in the world, perhaps. It seemed only natural to set it up in the Netherlands.
Before that, just stepping back a little bit for a second to get a little bit into your background before we move back into the onto the project. You are a pilot. You're a commercial airline pilot.
That's right.
You used to fly for quite a few years for Flybe.
15 years at Flybe. So that was at one point Europe's largest regional aircraft operator. We had like 70 Dash 8s and 20 odd Embraer 195s and 175s.
We had one of the very first episodes of this podcast. there was a friend of mine that happens to be also a former Flybe pilot, and he was flying one of the Dashes out of Belfast. It's an episode I recommend to pretty much everyone that is interested in the business of flying, because he shared many insights about the life of a pilot, not just at Flybe, but he did fly planes in the Maldives and in other parts of the world. So just a little parenthesis here, because you obviously the second.
Yeah, I actually missed that one, so I'm interested to find out, and it might be that I actually know.
Was one of the very first podcast episodes I did. It must have been like the first or second, I think, all of them.
Yeah, so the pandemic in the airline industry led, for the people that don't know and haven't listened to the podcast, that's probably covered in there as well in that podcast, but Flybe was one of the first victims, in the sense that it was just being taken over or bought up by a group of three entities, one of them being Virgin and the other one being Stobart. And when the pandemic hit, it became clear that Virgin Group, for instance, was looking at 400 million losses straight away. So they pulled out, and that was it really. That was curtains. It was the wrong time for that to happen. Looking for another investor or somebody to take that place at that time is impossible. So Flybe folded, and I think quite a few of the pilots are still around, but have gone on to do other things, and I think quite a few of them are not coming back.
Yeah, because we must say that Flybe is back. It's come back after about a year or so that it was no more. But then I don't know if they kept the actual legal entity running. I don't know exactly the behind the scenes story, but basically Flybe is back now in a reduced form. But obviously many people like you have moved on to do other things.
Yeah, I was based at Southampton, and we at Southampton Airport we did like 97% of the movements there. And Flybe is not back at Southampton Airport. It's opened up at a few other bases. But even if it was to start back up there, I'm certainly not going back for various reasons. One of them being that I know from my technical background, having studied industrial product design and being quite heavily into battery electric airplanes and other ways, I've done the math, and I know that all those flights that I used to do, or the majority of them, we can actually do in the very near future with battery electric aircraft with zero emissions. And short haul flights, unfortunately, is one of the worst emitters in terms of per passenger kilometer of emissions.
So what's the story of Electron? I guess that didn't come out of nowhere. You already were kind of interested or looking into this electric aviation space, and you set up Electron on your own, or you have other partners, other investors?
Yeah, so I started the company together with Richard Blackwell in the UK, and yes, my background, I've been looking at it for a long time. I've been an investor in Tesla for quite a while, so I've sort of seen this happen in the automotive sector, and been really surprised that not much is happening in the aviation world, aerospace world. Huge amounts of money being plowed into vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, but not so much in conventional takeoff and landing aircraft, which actually have an established certification pathway. Especially now, Pipistrel certified the first EASA battery electric aircraft. That was really the basis for me to start looking at this more seriously. It's like, okay, so there is actually a lot of money being invested here now, but why not? Why are we not seeing any normal takeoff and landing aircraft? And when you look at the mechanics of it, the efficiency, the energy efficiency, and therefore the range with the limited battery energy density, you won't be able to fly with a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft from, say, London to Amsterdam. You don't be able to fly from Heathrow to the center of London, or from Amsterdam to Schiphol Airport, but you need a conventional takeoff and landing aircraft to actually fly between London and Amsterdam.
Looking at the specs of the aircraft you are working on, which is called the Electron 5, right? That's let's say the production one that you are aiming for. We can talk about the time frames now, but you are aiming for a range of 750 kilometers. Quite impressive for a battery electric aircraft.
That's right, yeah. So we have already the Electron 2 flying at the moment in Portugal. It's a two-seater, which is our proof of concept. It's in the same class as the Pipistrel, so 600 kilos, two people. But because it's a clean sheet design, and there's 8 years worth of development in there. And the result is that you now have an aircraft that uses less than half the energy compared to the Pipistrel. So that allows us with the same size battery pack to do more than double the range, double the endurance. And that's really the basis of what we're doing with the Electron 5 is basically just a bigger version of it. It's again a clean sheet design, not a retrofit aircraft. And by the time it goes into series production, the batteries that will go into it, we will be able to do 750 kilometers with the aircraft. Now that's maximum range. So, if you take the operational reserves off that, you're looking at around 500 kilometer operational range, which would allow us to fly from Amsterdam to London.
Which sort of batteries are you using now for this demonstrator?
So for the two-seater, we have just 2170 cells in there, much like a lot of the other battery projects out there. And for the Electron 5, I can't really comment on that.
Okay.
But let's just put it this way: the batteries exist. It's not. We're using today's battery technology with high cycle life. It's not pie in the sky.
Mm-hmm. But who's actually built the demonstrator, for example? I mean, are you doing it, or you have some industrial partners that are working with you on that?
No, we don't have any big industrial partners so far. We actually, that's a separate project that started way before we started Electron Aviation and Electron Aerospace, like eight to 10 years ago. I think 10 years ago it really started. But there's a lot of design philosophy similarities between the Electron 2 and the Electron 5. And so when we actually came across that project through a connection, we were looking for batteries. And one of the potential battery suppliers flagged it up and said, actually, I know a guy that's already got an aircraft flying. And we started talking. And so now, we've basically onboarded the team behind that aircraft.
Okay, interesting. So the plan is actually that you will build the aircraft yourself.
We are focusing on the aircraft itself and all the systems that go in it. The majority of them we buy in. So in a sense, a little bit opposite of like Tesla, we're more horizontally integrated, which I think for the aerospace industry is a necessity if you want to actually get things done in a decent time frame. I mean, already building a clean sheet aircraft takes a lot longer than modifying, retrofitting an existing aircraft.
Pretty impressive. You guys still, you're doing quite a lot of it on your own. How big is your team at the moment?
Yeah, so I mean, it is still really early days. So we've done some CAD work, but really we have been working at the three important things that you need to do when you start a company, and for a long time after as well, is fundraising, recruiting, and sales. So we've got our first sales, we've got our first money in, and we are recruiting. So if anybody is looking for an aerospace job for an aircraft that I would say is perhaps certainly one of the most the most credible out there, yeah, come and have a chat.
What sort of profiles are you looking for? Engineering?
Yes, so we're not trying to scale up to 750 plus employees in a short space of time. We want to keep the team relatively small. So there's about 20 people working on this at the moment, and we're looking to scale that up to somewhere around 75 over the next year or two.
In the Netherlands?
In the Netherlands, yes, but obviously there will be a lot of remote work as well on this.
Very interesting. Then you have you have two things going on. One is the project to build the aircraft, and once you have the aircraft flying, you've got a project that is related, which is actually to operate those aircraft. So what's your business model? You plan to sell it to other operators, but run your own operation as well? What's the idea, and what sort of timeframes are you looking at for each of them?
Okay. Yeah, I think maybe perhaps important to take a tiny little step back.
Sure.
I think we, like many others, looked at it and were like, okay, we can see cost savings on the operational side because of the electrification. Zero emissions is obviously a big thing. Let's become an operator because that's where all the money is. But it turns out the aircraft aren't really available.
Yeah. as you mentioned
So there's
earlier.
quite a few companies out there that want to become an operator, and our view on it really is that if we do all the hard work of building the aircraft to actually suit the demand from the market, then we don't really want to just sell the aircraft, because that's not where the most of the money is. And just like when Uber and the other ride-hailing platforms kind of transformed the taxi market on the road. Before we had normal taxi operators, and people wouldn't really use a taxi perhaps as much because the booking process isn't as easy. And now, people are using the ride-hailing platforms much more than they did in the past. We see a similar thing going to happen in aerospace, and there's a lot of companies that have clogged onto this as well. Where you can basically book your trip on your phone through an app really easily. So we immediately started looking at what other companies, partners, do we need to actually offer a full door-to-door service. Obviously, we need the charging infrastructure, but we also need a ground fleet operator to do that door-to-door last mile service.
Is it going to be really door-to-door? Because you would need a runway, so it's going to be able to land at many more locations than a conventional aircraft.
That's the thing. At the moment, in Europe and the whole world, really, there is a lot of small airports that are hardly being used. So in Europe, there's about 2,700 airports that we could operate in and out of, and you will find that a lot more people are within half an hour of a small airport, compared to the 400 odd airports that we now use with scheduled services, where you then have to fly with 180 other people. And
true.
the reason that we've gone that route of only using a selection of airports with longer runways and big aircraft is largely because of cost, driven by the maintenance on the aircraft. So the maintenance on the drive system is really expensive. So if you can write it off over passengers and use the aircraft quite a lot, then it makes commercial sense.
So it's going to be a four-seater aircraft. Flying
to give you an example, for instance, I live still at Hedge End, which is near Southampton on the south coast of the UK, United Kingdom. And at the moment, I have the choice of flying with KLM Cityhopper once a day, 5 days in the week to Schiphol. Or if that time or day doesn't suit me, I have to go to Heathrow or Gatwick, still to flying to Schiphol, when actually I need to be on the other side of the country in the Netherlands. So in the future, I shall be able to, via an app, book very easy, like Uber, my trip, get picked up from home, be dropped off by an Uber or whatever at Southampton Airport, which is only 15 minutes away from where I live, fly to Teugen Airport, which is again only 15 minutes away from where I am here now. So much more convenient, point to point. I don't have to be there 2 hours before. I don't have to share the airplane with 180 other people, and zero emissions.
What about the cost?
Yeah, so it's a bit like when Tesla first entered the market. There's a lot of similarities there, in the sense that first they started with the Lotus Elise, turned that into the Roadster. Again, highlighting there how even Tesla have again recently said how big of a mistake that was, because you make a lot of engineering compromises, and in the end, they had like 5% of the original parts left in the car. So it's better to start with the clean sheet design, and that is basically a sports car, a supercar almost. And then they went to the Model S, which is quite top end of the price range. So we see the same going to happen with battery electric aircraft, where initially we already have the retrofit aircraft, which is the Velis Electro, and now we're going to see top end of the market. So consultancies, for instance, they at the moment are traveling a lot by train and by car, because they can't fly anymore because of the emissions. That costs them a lot of time, actually. And so for them to travel with a service like we could provide, they would save a lot of time. So even if the flying is a little bit more expensive, on the whole, it's actually a lot cheaper for them, because they save so much time, and consulting hours are quite expensive. But eventually the price will effectively, we're making flying private like 90% cheaper.
True.
Which is So that really opens up that market for a lot more people. It's never, going to be as cheap to fly a small aircraft with 5 seats as it is going to be an aircraft with 100 or 200 seats. So it's not going to be, Ryanair, EasyJet kind of 20 pound, 20 euro tickets.
Yeah.
But it's still going to be very, very affordable.
Yeah. You will you will have the pilot still. You will need to pay the pilot.
Exactly.
Flight,
yeah.
So.
But and the other thing that's going to happen in the future is the cost of flying is going to go up because kerosene is going to start getting taxed. So while combustion engine aircraft operators are going to start seeing their prices go up, our prices are going to keep going down. So you get this crossover at some point in the future where actually it's very reasonably priced.
And in terms of design, are you doing the design yourselves as well? I've seen some renderings of the Electron 5, which looks really cool. You also highlight that it's going to be like exercise panoramic windows. Is it something you are also doing in-house, or the, let's say, interior design?
Yes, that's really what we're doing. That's like our core business on the aerospace side, is designing an aircraft that works very efficiently, that we can produce in large volumes effectively, and also is very consumer friendly. So you don't have to climb on top of the wing to get into the aircraft or anything like that. There's no propellers in the way of you getting in and out of the aircraft, things like that.
And what is the status now of the project, other than obviously you have you have been flying this demonstrator in Portugal for 2 people.
Yeah.
From here, what is the time frame? Right now you're raising funding, right? Also from investors?
Yeah, and we will be, going from one fundraising round to the next. We have already received some investment as part of the 6 million round that we're just about to close off now. And we are literally setting up shop at Teugen Airport in the Netherlands right now, moving our operations from Portugal to here. It's quite an exciting time where stuff is really starting to happen.
And on the technical side, what is the time frame? Certification and
okay. So originally we wanted to have the certification of the aircraft, the 5-seater, finished by the end of 2026. Because fundraising has taken a bit longer than we anticipated, and when the financial market took a bit of a downturn and people were looking at recessions and things like that as well, you see that the investments to startups have really come down a lot, whereas follow-on investment has been the majority of the investments made. But nevertheless, we are nearly out of the woods there now, and going. So that means that we're probably looking at the first deliveries in 2027 now, or the second half of 2027 rather than the first half of 2027. So that's when we start delivering aircraft to people that are ordering aircraft from us, and that's also when we are looking at starting to operate the aircraft ourselves with the sister company Electron Aviation.
What's going to be the cost of buying one of the aircraft?
The price of the aircraft is around about 1.5 million euros, depending on when you actually buy the aircraft, because the price will be going up and people that order earlier get bigger discounts. But that's roughly where we're at, and that's about equivalent to what you would pay for what we are really comparing the aircraft against, which would be, say, a Diamond DA62.
But I guess you will have an aircraft flying earlier than that, because you are planning a very special flight before these dates, before it goes live commercially, which is you're preparing a world tour where a pilot called Travis Ludlow, who is the youngest person to fly solo around the world. I think he's a record holder now.
Yes.
He's going to take one of your Electron aircraft all around the world in 2024, in principle.
That's right. Yeah. So originally, we wanted to be sure that we built an aircraft that isn't just a record setter, but actually a commercially viable aircraft. But small aircraft like this are perhaps not as well known or popular with the general public. Most people fly on a big plane. They might not be that comfortable in getting in a small aircraft. And so part of building that confidence, if we can fly the aircraft around the world, we can safely say that A, you can get pretty much anywhere in the world with a battery electric aircraft and zero emissions. And B, it's probably safe to fly a short distance from, say, London to Manchester or something.
Yeah.
And so that was really the thought there. We worked with another crazy adventurer on that, James Ketchell, who's actually flown a gyrocopter around the world. He's the record holder for the first one to actually circumnavigate the world in a gyrocopter in 2019, I believe it was. And he knows the routes that we need to take, and has a lot of connections there with an aircraft that has a limited range. But then Travis Ludlow came along, and we really was excited and wanted to actually fly the plane instead. And we said, yes, sure. I mean, we ultimately sustainability is for us now a big topic, but for the youth of today, the people that are going to be dealing with the consequences of our decisions now, it's even a bigger a point. And so it's important for the youth to get involved with this and say, let's go and make this happen.
And is it possible to do that even if the aircraft is not yet certified for?
Yeah, so it'll be a prototype. It'll be experimental aircraft. There is obviously regulatory issues. There might be some countries that won't allow us to fly through their airspace, which is something that we will have to deal with.
I was thinking, like, with the current situation with Russia, the obvious route through Alaska and the Russian Far East might get a bit complicated if issues are not settled by that date, I guess. Can you fly direct from?
We will look at the route. Obviously, we can change that to some extent. James did fly through Russia. Obviously, at the moment, that's not really an option. I'm positively hoping that the conflict gets resolved in Ukraine. The invasion of Ukraine that needs to end. And
can you fly? Can you fly direct from Japan to the outermost Alaskan islands with the Electron 5? I don't know if that's within range or not.
I'm going to guess no. I haven't looked at it in detail, but I guess that would be out of range of at least the stock aircraft. Now, there's always the option of being a 5-seater, putting in extra batteries for that trip, and just having the one pilot in there.
Because is it gonna do it? Is he gonna do it with a 2-seater aircraft?
No. It's gonna be with the Electron 5.
Okay. So that's planned for 2024, right?
Yeah, it is. But again, considering the fundraising delay, and the time of the year that you would likely do that trip, it's looking more likely that that's now going to be 2025.
Yeah. Are you expecting charging stations to be available at every point along the route? Because I had, for example, here in the podcast, I had these guys that did the first cross-country all-electric flight across Germany, from the south tip of Germany all the way to one of the islands on the north.
Morel Westermann.
So I spoke with Morel, Malik Aziz, who was also one of the members of the team. And basically, they told me that one of the team had to drive ahead with a battery because some of the airports where they were landing, they were not really prepared to handle electric aircraft and recharge the pipistrel they were using. Well, I don't know how it's going to be the situation by 2024, but I guess that can be an issue at a global scale when you attempt this record.
Yes, no, absolutely. There's two things to it. Obviously, we will need to provide a solution for airports where there isn't any electric aircraft charging infrastructure in place yet, and we will also be putting pressure on those airports and authorities and countries to make some effort to make this happen. And we have quite a bit of time for that. But it's important to realize that right now there isn't really a charging standard for electric aircraft like we have for automotive. We are well aware that we're going to have a solution for the airports where there won't be any charging infrastructure in place yet. Saying that, we are looking at it the same as what happened in automotive, say 12 years ago, when there wasn't any charging infrastructure. There wasn't any standard even for charging electric cars. We now see the same thing happening in aerospace, where there is no set standard yet for charging electric aircraft. So I actually was recently at the opening of a new test lab, A-Lab test lab in Arnhem, and it was opened by the King. It's a bigger facility that they opened already in a very short time after opening the original facility. Hence, the King came along to open it. And interestingly, one of those the areas of interest there was interoperability and charging of electric airplanes. And the King of the Netherlands is actually an active pilot.
Yeah.
So he flies the government plane, and he flies for KLM to keep his license valid.
The 737, right? He's
yeah, that's right.
Boeing 737 pilot, the King William Alexander of the Netherlands.
Yeah, that's right. So he was there. I think he spent the most time there in that section, talking with the guys from E-Flight with the pipistrelle that they had there about exactly this point. So and we were invited to be there with our Electron too, but unfortunately couldn't make it to have the aircraft there. So I was there and had a chat with the King about the range that battery electric aircraft are going to be able to do in the coming years. But the charging infrastructure doesn't exist yet, but it will come. Absolutely, it will come. There's quite a lot of parties that actually are interested in doing that. Having seen what happened in automotive, and to use the same hardware, almost doing a similar thing at airports with the solar panels at airports, and then charging electric cars and electric airplanes, so you have chargers airside and landside.
Yeah, that would be a big advance. Even now for mobile phones, it's a bit of a nightmare. If you have different makes of mobile phone at home, just finding the right charger at the right time can be quite a challenge. So that even gets bigger with aircraft. So people that want to learn more about your project and keep track of the progress you guys doing, websites, what resources would you suggest? I
would suggest following us on LinkedIn. That's where we are probably the most active. Our website doesn't get updated very much. It's well out of date, and we will get round to updating that, but we're not in the business of being a media platform and having everything looking spick and span and being up to date. Our focus is on getting the aircraft built. So there is the LinkedIn profiles for both companies, Electron Aerospace and Electron Aviation, where we do post some stuff on occasionally, and otherwise get in touch. In any case, I will just mention the website in case someone wants to check it out. It's flyelectron.eu. Keep it in mind.
Right. Yeah, very good. Well, thank you very much, Josef, for this very interesting chat today. Wishing you all the best with this very exciting project that you are leading. The aircraft, I must say, I said it earlier, but I say it again, it looks really cool. So really looking forward to fly on it before the end of this decade, when you get everything in place, and hopefully it's going to become one piece of the let's say the European mobility puzzle. So people that like you have to commute between Southampton and the Eastern Netherlands can have an easy, convenient, and green way to do it.
Yeah, we'll see you. We'll see you on board sometime, hopefully in 2027, Mikael.
Yeah, hopefully. Speak soon.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Before you go, and if you like this podcast, a quick reminder that it would be absolutely great if you could please give it a rating on Apple, Spotify, or whichever platform you're using, or recommend it to a friend or whomever might be interested. Thank you very much, and see you soon.